This podcast is part of the C-Suite Radio Network, turning the volume up on business.
Welcome to the Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer. Join us as Deb talks with her guests, experts in their fields, as they share real-life stories and techniques to power up your business.
Good morning, good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And let's face it, we can have the coolest product or service in the world, or in maybe your community, but if we don't communicate about it well with our words, it's not going to matter. You know, if people can't understand what it is that we are trying to convince someone to buy, then there's really no point in doing this. And it's so funny because I was talking with my guest off the air, and there are such hideous examples of people who don't know how to write well. And so please join me in welcoming Nick Usborne to our program today. Welcome, Nick.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
Oh, and I apologize. I mispronounced your name after I asked you how to pronounce it. You know, it's just one of those things. So let me tell people a little bit about you, and then we will jump right into it.
Okay.
Nick Usborne is an expert in copywriting and web writing. He has written copy for some of the world's biggest brands, including Citibank, Apple, Chrysler, MSN.com, New York Times, WebEx, the U.S. Navy, and others. He attributes his success to conversational copywriting, and he's here today to share his approach to help you write persuasive and effective copy for clients or for yourself. Welcome to the show, Nick.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to this.
Great.
Well, let's just conversation about words.
Oh, I know, you know, and it's funny. I love talking about this subject, and again, I shared off the air with you that I always struggle with writing. I don't think I'm that good at it. And, you know, and so to be able to talk about this, I think it's just fabulous. But let's kind of go back a bit. How did you get into this wordsmithing business?
The wordsmithing business. Happy accident.
Mm-hmm.
Happy accident. My father gently nudged me out of the house because I was doing nothing.
Uh-oh.
I was sitting around doing nothing. Didn't get to university.
Mm-hmm.
And went up to London.
Okay.
And so I live in Canada, but I was born and raised and educated in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just staying with friends in a house, and one of those friends worked in an ad agency. And I said, "What's an advertising agency?" "What is that? I've never heard of such a thing." And he told me. I said, "Is it fun?" And he said, "Well, heck, yes, it is fun." So I thought, fine. And I got out this is like late 1970s. So I got out my old mechanical typewriter. I wrote 20 letters to 20 agencies, got 3 interviews, 1 offer, which I took, because my dad told me to get a job.
Mm-hmm.
And I moved around that ad agency, different departments, which was actually great. Gave me a kind of grounding and everything. It's like an apprenticeship. And then finally I went to the creative department, and they said, "Well, what are you? You're a designer or a writer?" And I said, "Well, I'm not really sure."
Right.
And so they tried me on design, and I was terrible. And then they tried me on writing, and it was like, I was one of those like teenagers in early 20s who I had very, very low self-esteem. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I was completely lost. And then that day came where they said, "Okay, write some copy, write some words." And by lunchtime that day, I just knew. I just fell in love. I just loved it. I just loved the craft. And this is my 40th anniversary this year.
Wow.
So I've been writing professionally as a copywriter for 40 years. And that first day, I thought, this is it. This is what I do. And I'm still doing it today, and I'm still loving it today when it's done well. I hate it when it's done badly. So yeah, I got a lot of decades, a lot of years behind me, and kind of watching how the craft of copywriting has evolved, or the reverse. And so then the next exciting thing was the arrival of the web, because that changed, for me, everything from a copywriting point of view, because it used to be that we wrote copy, we kind of broadcast messages at an audience through one-way media like TV or billboards or a magazine. And then the web comes along, and it's like, well, hang on, this isn't a one-way medium. This is an interactive medium. This is
They
two-way,
went
multi-way.
there on purpose.
That's right. And also people can write back through social media, through their own blogs. So all the, you can't, I can't create a TV show back at a TV network through my television, but I can write a blog post or I can interact with social media on the web. So to me, that changed everything. For a lot of companies, I think they didn't get it early on that this was a different place. So that was like I always loved copywriting. And then when the web came along, because I wrote my first website back in 1995.
Wow.
And at that point, I thought, oh my goodness, I love this too. I kind of fell in love a second time. And so, yeah, I've been on this kind of crusade about kind of writing for the web, but also, like you said in the introduction, conversational writing. In other words, not old school broadcast writing where you're writing at an audience, but conversational copywriting where you are engaging with an audience. You are listening.
Right.
So in this process, I've become a bit of a geek on the whole topic of conversation, because I think conversation is such an important part of our lives, and we are almost, we're pretty bad at holding conversations, most of us, and we tend to talk too much and listen too little. I'm the same, definitely. I'm not as good a listener as I should be. But if you think about conversation, everything important in our lives begins with a conversation. The first date, a job interview, getting to know your friends, being there for a friend in need. Conversation is everything. It's such an important part of our lives, and we're really not very good at it. And marketers and companies pay lip service to, we have to listen to our customers and stuff, but they don't really. And when I look at the writing on most websites, most digital marketing and communications, it's mostly a bunch of gobbledygook and nonsense, and doesn't suggest that they're truly listening to their audience, or that they're writing in any kind of everyday conversational language. It's this weird kind of business speak. And interrupt me when I ramble too much. But
oh no, I love it. This is great.
You got me going now. So look, here's the irony. Here's what I find. This is what drives me crazy. As kids, we all knew how to do this. So I've got, if you got kids or nieces or nephews or whatever, you know that a little kid understands how to persuade.
Right.
They want that bike, they want that dress, they want to stay up late, they want whatever it is. They understand that if they make eye contact, if they give you the little puppy eye thing, that always helps. They know that if they know that they cannot persuade you rationally, but they can always persuade you emotionally.
Right.
I mean, as kids, we know this. You look at or go to the classic kind of lemonade stand in the front yard. The kids selling, they know how to sell lemonade.
Right.
And as kids,
and it's usually horrible lemonade.
Yeah, but it doesn't even matter because it's not why we buy it. And so as kids, we know how to use language to be persuasive. We understand it. Then we go to school and we start having that ability educated out of us. We're told to write properly in proper sentences. And then we have to write even more properly for our exams. And then if we go to university, then our language becomes even more kind of constrained. And heaven forbid we get a PhD, because then the only people who can understand what on earth we're trying to say are our fellow people at doing that kind of work. And then we go to maybe business school, and then we get ingrained with all this nonsense business gobbledygook stuff. And you get out at the end, and you have an individual who used to know how to communicate clearly, simply, emotionally, in everyday language, and they've lost it. They've lost that ability. Now all they do is they write down this kind of stream of gobbledygook, and it's like the word equivalent of empty calories. It's lots of words with almost no meaning. So that's what I find kind of ironic, is this is a skill we actually all used to have.
Right.
We just lost it to various degrees.
And it was funny as you were talking, what I was thinking of, with kids is it's very much short, and it's short and sweet. Why do you want this? Because, right? And they really don't even know why, or they just, and they just, well, because. Because
they definitely don't pull out a PowerPoint, or they definitely don't give you a list of
well, because it's going to make my life better in all these ways.
Let me give you 5 reasons why.
Right. And I love that because, as we've said, we start writing more and more. It's like we're paid by the word to write, and so we end up with these long, huge things that really are just saying, you should buy this because it's nice, because it will make your life easier. The one sentence type of thing. But I think so many times we feel, well, there's, a lot of things we feel like we need to convince someone. And so you have to give them every single point in the world as to why they should buy it. We need to compete with the others. We've looked at someone else's website, their brochure, their emails, whatever, and they've been very verbose. So we think, well, we have to be very verbose too. And I think a lot of times we obviously end up talking people out of working with us or buying our product or service because they didn't understand what it was that we were doing, because we tried to tell them every single little detail.
Right. And also what happens is, like I say, it's the bad conversation, because you go to the website and ironically, one of the biggest offenders to my mind are marketing agencies, marketing agency websites. Mm-hmm. And the words are all about the agency and not about the reader.
Right.
Like to me, it's like writing 101 for a website. This should be visitor centric, not publisher centric. Mm-hmm. And I guess that's the biggest sin of all, is this just this relentless blah 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 about our company and how wonderful we are. Well, I don't care. Right. What I want to know is whether you are a good match for the need I have. Mm-hmm. And if you can very quickly show me that you can add value where I need it, then I'll give you a call. Mm-hmm. If you're going to give me 3 pages of blah, 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 I'm out of here, and thank goodness.
Right. Well, and the light bulb, did you see it? That my light bulb just went off. I work with people a lot on LinkedIn, and especially executives and senior level people on how to write persuasive LinkedIn profiles. And or people who are, say, in the job market. And one of the things that I have been guilty of is I tell people more. We want to know more. And one of the things I will say is, for the various sections, in many cases, you have 2,000 characters that you can put in there.
Right.
And you should fill up that space. And I just realized that is wrong. And now, granted, sometimes you do, we can be too short, because if you don't give enough information, people will go on. I mean, there's kind of this happy medium type of thing, but it's just because you can do that much space, it doesn't mean you should.
No, and also it matters where you put that information. Mm-hmm. So say on a website. Right. At the beginning, if let's say you're some kind of service provider, an agency, a consultant, whatever, and I go to your website, the first thing I want to know is, can these people deliver value where I need it? Mm-hmm. I don't, at that point, I don't care about their background, their people, all that. I just want to know whether they have what I need. Mm-hmm. So that first part of the conversation should always all be centered about, here's what we do and for whom, and this is the value we can deliver to you. Right. So I want to, once I've done that, then I say, oh, great, these guys sound like they have exactly what I need. Mm-hmm. And then I ask myself, hey, who are these guys? Mm-hmm. So I go to the About page. Right. And now what I've done is I've given you permission to go on for 2,000 characters or 2,000 words about yourself, because I've chosen to go there. Right. First of all, I found out that, yes, you have something that I want. Mm-hmm. But as soon as I click that About button, I've now given you permission to do your blah, blah, blah about yourself. So that's okay. The problem is when the blah, blah, blah comes on the first page, because at that point, I don't care. All I want to know is whether you have what I need. Mm-hmm. Right.
I love the websites that start with, in business for over 25 years. You said, I don't care. I mean, if you've been in business for 25 days and can do what I need you to do, that's what's going to capture my initial attention. Now, if it is something that is very long term, okay, I want to know that you're going to be around. But yeah, initially, I don't care that you've been in business for however many years or have X number of degrees or, all of those various things. I just want to know, can you do what I need you to do?
Yes. And also, just there's always a simple way to explain that. There's always a way of using everyday language. And I think you made the point, before, I think it was before we started recording, that sometimes people use fancy business language to look important, to sound like they know that they're important. I don't know. And that cannot work in your favor. You've got to get past that idea of that business speak makes you sound competent, because it doesn't. It just makes you sound incomprehensible.
Right.
You've got to go back to everyday language. It's short words, short sentences. There's that wonderful quote attributed to all kinds of different people. It goes along the lines of, I apologize for the length of this letter, but I didn't have time to write a short one. Which is absolutely correct. It is much harder to write a short version of something, and it's much harder to write a short version using short words and short sentences and short paragraphs, because you have to put a lot more thought. It's easy to fill a page with blah, blah, blah nonsense. So yeah, put in the work to make it simple.
It's interesting. I saw a Facebook post from a friend of mine several days ago, and she'd written a book, and it had gone off to the editor. And her comment was, my 70,000 word book came back edited to 15,000 words, and boy, does it read better. And I think maybe that's one of the hardest things is for to edit our own work. Long ago, when I was getting my undergrad degree, I had a professor, and this was an English class, and he told us, he said, words are not your babies. Just because you put them in there, it's okay if I take my red pen and cross them all out. He said, don't get so attached to the words that we can't write well. And I remember, one of the first papers I gave him, it came back and it looked like he'd taken his red pen and just gone blah. And he cut it down to this minor amount of words. And after I got over that initial, I read it and I thought, yeah, it really does read better.
It does. And it's like I said, I've been doing this for 40 years, and I've just, the last maybe 5 years, I've really started paying much closer attention to the quality of my own writing. It may seem weird after all that time. But what I find I'm doing now is I'm becoming a better editor of my writing. And it's exactly as you say. When I edit my own writing, I'm constantly cutting out extraneous words, sentences that are not necessary, paragraphs that are not necessary. And everything is getting simpler and simpler. And yeah, it takes some time and some experience. But one thing I would say to someone listening, if someone's listening to this and saying, well, I don't really know whether the copy on my website or my emails or my social media channels, I don't know whether this is what Nick would call bad or whether what Nick would call good. Like, how do I know that? So my favorite litmus test there is read it out loud, preferably in front of a friend or family member, or it could be a work colleague, but not someone too close, because you might both be buying into the same nonsense. So hey, your spouse, an older kid or something. So if you got a page on your website, read it out loud to that person. And a few things might happen here. Is one, you're going to maybe stop after a while and think, this is really embarrassing. This is not me at all. This isn't my voice. This is right. Or you'll see the look on your friend's face. He's like, seriously.
Yeah, they're trying to not yawn and
right. So when it's safely on the page, because the thing with the web is that you write it in privacy. Other people read it. It might be 10,000 miles away, and they're not. You're not together in the same room.
Right.
So when you actually read it out loud to someone, it's a great indicator of hey, is this really me? Is this my voice? Is this what I actually mean? Or am I trying to sound like a marketer? Am I trying to sound like some fancy business person that I'm not? That's not me. So I think that's a wonderfully simple way to do it. It's also a great way to, I was talking about shortening and simplifying your writing, is when you start reading something out loud, you may find, like if you've written some ridiculous compound sentence that goes on for or 40 words.
If you're not able to breathe.
Right. If you run out of breath or you start stumbling or run out, it's like, okay. Because the reader will have a similar experience, is they will also lose track in the middle of that sentence. So yeah, reading out loud, I do it myself. And I don't read out everything, but when I'm proofing, I'll read something out. I'll be reading through something. And if I find a sentence or paragraph where I have any doubt, like, is that as clear as it could be? Then I read it out loud. And in fact, that decision to read it out loud is almost always an accurate indicator that I need to work harder there.
Right. You know, and the thesaurus, it's hard to say, is not our friend. I mean, you know, this is not the time where you're putting in all those words. And, you know, you mentioned when we go to school, and I think that's one of those things that we're taught is, you know, be descriptive, I think might be one of the things. And so they're saying, you know, that instead of saying the pretty blue flower, you say the pretty, I can't think of another word for blue all of a sudden. Chartreuse?
Azure.
The azure flower that only blooms in the moonlight, you know, and all the, and pretty soon you're thinking, what? And you really were just talking about the pretty blue flower.
Right. And we get, in school, we get praised, right, for fancy language. Spelling bees. You know,
oh, yeah.
You spell all these ridiculous words you'll never ever use again in your life. There is pride and value in that fancy language. And that's why I say is our natural ability to be persuasive and clear is educated out of us. And we just have to kind of see if we can rewind that. Because it's all still there in us, that way to be, you know, clear. And going back to the whole conversational approach is that begins with listening. So when I was working in the offline world before that first website of mine in 1995, I was just offline along with every other copywriter on the planet, really. And in terms of listening to our audience, you know, we did focus groups, which I hate, and we'd get some basic demographic information, but it was very hard to write copy based on what we'd listen to because you really couldn't listen. Online, it's amazing. I can listen to my prospects and customers all the time. I can go to discussion lists, I can go to social media platforms, I can go to Amazon, I can go to Yelp, I can find all these different places where my audience is talking. And I can not only listen, I can listen to their language, the kind of language they use. I can get a sense of their emotional state, what makes them love a product or service or hate a product or service, and the kind of language they use. So if a good conversation, if conversational copy is based on listening, which it should be, then the web is ideal for that. And the companies can be a little lazy there. They don't bother with the listening part. So it becomes one of those, the worst days of your life where the guy sits across the table and they keep talking about themselves for half an hour. And then they're astonished that you don't find them stunningly attractive. Well, in websites, we do the same thing, right? We keep going on and on about ourselves. We don't listen. And we don't use that language. So I really, really try to listen for, hey, if I put aside 10 hours to write some text or copy, 8 hours, I don't start writing until about beginning of hour number 9. All right, I'll do 2 hours of writing, 8 hours before preparation. Always preparation. So I'm doing the research, I'm doing the listening, I'm trying to find the language of my audience, I'm trying to find the emotional high points and low points. I will do an outline. I'll go to enormous lengths to get it absolutely clear in my mind before I start writing. For the amateur writer, as it were, or the inexperienced writer, it's reverse.
Right.
They'll do.
We just start
2
writing.
hours of research maybe, or they'll just start writing. What happens there is all kinds of stuff goes wrong. But the biggest one is that if you don't listen, how do you know who you're talking to?
Right.
It's like going on that blind date, really blind, like with a blindfold. Is how do you know what to say if you don't know who you're talking to? And how do you know what language to use if you haven't listened to the language of your audience? And if you do listen to the language of your audience, now you have an absolute superpower, and this is called mirroring. This is anyone who took a psychology degree knows all about mirroring, which is where you actually just mirror back the language of the person in front of you. So there was, again, I'm going to ramble a bit, so stop me if I ramble for too long. Wonderful study was done where in a restaurant with two groups of waiters. One group of waiters, when they took the order from a table, complimented them. And we've all had this. You say, okay, I'm going to have the steak and chips. And the waiter says, excellent choice.
Mm-hmm.
All right, it happens all the time.
Right.
The other group of waiters did something completely different. They didn't compliment the customer. If the customer said, I would like steak and chips, the waiter just said, steak and chips. That just basically spoke back the exact same words. And this is called mirroring, where you mirror the language back. The group of waiters who mirrored rather than complimented got 70% more in tips.
Wow, I would have thought it was the opposite.
Exactly right, counterintuitive.
Mm-hmm.
So the compliment was mistrusted, quite rightly. It is nonsense because they say that.
Right.
Already.
Oh yeah, they're not going to say bad choice, right?
They're not going to say, seriously.
Yeah, I wouldn't eat that.
Great choice. And part of you thinks, oh yes, I am a sophisticated orderer. And the other part of you thinks, yeah, sure.
Mm-hmm.
The mirroring. So this is used, mirroring is also used in hostage negotiation. It's used in all kinds of ways.
Mm-hmm.
It's used in therapy.
Mm-hmm.
You say, oh, I feel so depressed about work. And your therapist says, I hear you saying that you feel depressed about work.
Tell me more.
That's the one. Tell me more,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of really irritating at one level, but there you go. So, because it always comes, right? You're always waiting for the tell me, or you're waiting for, how does that make you feel?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But the point of mirroring is you get that sense of, oh, this person gets me. So if you write to me and you say, let's say I sell coffee makers. Because you're going to sneeze. Excellent.
Oh, it went away.
It went away. All right.
Sorry about that. Okay, so coffee.
So let's say I sell coffee makers and I read in a whole bunch of comments either on my site or someone else's site or Facebook feed or whatever that people are saying, oh, I wish I could find a plastics-free coffee maker. I know this is something that comes up because I'm a bit of a coffee industry geek. Mm-hmm. And then if I then wrote a page about, say, a French press coffee maker, glass and steel, and I wrote in the headline, not that this is a fantastic French press coffee maker, but I wrote, have you ever looked for a plastics-free coffee maker?
And they're like, yes.
Right. So I'm mirroring back. I'm not selling my object, the French press coffee maker made of glass and steel. I'm mirroring their language, their concern, and the response is just as you. It's like, oh my God, it's like you read my mind, which I did. Or, oh my goodness, this company really gets me. They totally understand me. So that's like a coffee maker. You can work in the service industry as well. You're a consultant, you're a coach, you're whatever you are. You listen for the language and the concerns of your customers. Instead of using your homepage or your email or your newsletter to go blah, blah, blah about yourself, you mirror the precise language back. And people now lean in. It's because you've been listening, right? People lean in and think, oh my goodness, these guys, it's like they read my mind. They get me. They get what my problem, my challenge is. These people can help me. So super powerful. So as a copywriter, it's like, as a conversational copywriter, as a copywriter who listens, it's almost like the first thing you have to do is leave your ego at the door. Like the first 20 years of my career, I was all about writing clever copy.
Right.
I mean, seriously, back in the 80s, we were writing copy so that we could win awards. Never mind the customer.
Right. No,
about,
you wanted
to
win whatever
clever,
award.
the clever headline award, that kind of stuff. You have to really let that go as a writer for the web if you want to connect with your audience online. Let the ego go. Stop trying to be clever with your own words. Stop talking about your own company, your own business, and simply mirror the principal concerns of your audience.
Right.
And that is just ridiculously powerful. That is the superpower of conversational copywriting, is the listening part and the mirroring part and the letting go of the ego.
Right. Well, and we can do that ourselves, obviously, by paying attention when people are asking us questions about what we do or when they're complaining about it. When I tell people that I help people with their LinkedIn profiles, I get takes too much time, waste of time. I had somebody the other day that, I only go to my profile once a month. Is that enough? No. But, you do, it's when it is almost when you hear the complaints about whatever it is that then okay, now obviously you have to be truthful. You can't say, okay, but our product does this if it really doesn't. But,
Right.
When they're complaining about what it is, then okay, that's their pain point, right? We're all told, write about someone's pain point and how you can solve it. But, that really is what we're doing. And so, I need to say, do you think LinkedIn is a waste of time? Right? Right? That should be my headline, because then they're probably saying, well, yes, I do. And so tell me how it's not, and things like
I
that.
like
But
that. I like that. I like that. Because
yeah.
again, then now you're not selling
Mhm.
yourself. You're
Right.
mirroring what you
Mhm.
guess might be a
Mhm.
concern they have.
Right. And,
Yes.
and I think that is, but it was funny because you mentioned that we want to be clever. And,
Yes.
we want to use the catchphrases. We want to be cute. We want to use our taglines. And we were talking before the program about a television ad that just drives me nuts. It's one of those companies that, and television does really seem to be the place where people want to be clever. And then, but then of course it carries over because the whole big thing with marketing is you have to be consistent. What you're saying here, you should be saying here, and, all those
Right.
various things. And so the Arby's commercials right now here in the States are saying, Arby's, we have the meats. Okay. But then the guy comes on and he's got his little chef coat on and he says, for sandwiches. Okay. Really, I mean, that says nothing to me. And actually, the more I hear it, the more annoying I think it is. And I think that is one of the problems that we run into when we're being clever is we annoy people. I don't want to know that, that you have the meats. Can you give me a good ham sandwich? A good
I
roast beef
think that
sandwich?
I,
Okay.
th- I think they're trying to play on the success of where's the beef.
Right.
It's
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
so sometimes you will get a phrase like where's the beef or
Mhm.
got milk
Mhm.
out in the world of
Mhm.
TV land where it does for some reason resonate.
Right.
So I guess companies try to do that,
Mhm.
and most of the time it falls flat,
Mhm.
like you say.
Well, and
And
we're all told, as that we need a tagline, and I'm as guilty of that as anybody else. But then we take that tagline to an extreme,
right,
and it was funny. You in your bio, you mentioned that you wrote for the Navy, and I think it's the Army's, and they might not even do it any longer. Their tagline, "Be all that you can be." Okay, that really does kind of say everything,
right,
and so that's a good example of being clever, of having a tagline. But then, of course, from there, you want to describe, what does that mean? Does it mean that I can, learn computers? Does it mean that I can, all these various things? And so that's where, as you said, you've given permission then when somebody is reading further that
right.
you can explain in more detail.
Yeah, taglines are weird because, like you say, most of them are kind of nonsense.
Right. Just do it. Do what?
Tomorrow's solutions today.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of cliches happening in
Right.
taglines.
Right.
Um, so yeah, but it's in a sense I can be fairly forgiving of a tagline almost because
Mm-hmm.
I assume it's going to be nonsense.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So
And it might
not
catch your attention, which is maybe what you're wanting it to do, but
yeah. So just do it. The
mm-hmm.
Nike one.
Mm-hmm.
I have no complaint with that. I think it's been enormously powerful
Mm-hmm.
for our brand. It's part of the brand.
Mm-hmm.
It's very recognizable as part of
Right.
the brand. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And in a sense, you don't even you can just strip it of its meaning
Mm-hmm.
and just the appearance of the words
Mm-hmm.
on a T-shirt
Right.
or wherever.
You
You
know
think, oh,
exactly what
it's
it is.
Nike.
Mm-hmm.
My problem is when people try to apply that kind of tagline to a business.
Mm-hmm.
So they're an agency, they're a consultant, they're a coach, they're a small business, whatever. Because just do it
Mm-hmm.
or where's the beef or only works if you are doing mass media
Mm-hmm.
if you got the right line and you're doing mass media and it kind of goes into the kind of cultural landscape and people talk about it. But for most of us, we don't do that. We don't have the budgets of Nike or people like that. So we're far better off trying, not trying to be clever, but to come up with something that is clear and simple. And I mean, again, one of the things I always say working with clients or working on projects of my own is whatever the page, the email, the social media update, whatever, the first question I always ask myself is, what is the purpose of this page or this email? What is the purpose? First of all, it should be just one purpose.
Right.
Per page, per
Not
email,
this and this and this and this.
Right. So one purpose. And then does everything that I've created here serve that purpose? Does the headline serve the purpose? Does the first paragraph serve the purpose? Does the image contribute to the purpose, or is it simply decorative and distracting? Because very often it's just decorative and distracting, in which case remove it or change it.
It's the business person. It's whatever.
Right. So yeah, I'm really tough mostly on my own writing, but also on other people's writing. Is this on purpose? Is this reader-centric, or is it just you going blah, blah, blah? And yeah, and it's weird when I talk about the conversational approach, because I also teach this. I have a course on conversational copywriting. People say to me, hey, this sounds like second best. It's like you're pulling your punches. It's not, this doesn't sound like sales copywriting. When you're being conversational, it sounds entirely too friendly and
it's too soft.
Yeah, it just sounds like a soft skill, Mr. Usborne, a soft skill. We don't need that. We need to always be closing, baby. And but funny thing, I have a lot of friends in the direct response copywriting industry who are, they're all about results and conversion rates. And ask any of them, the most successful people in that field, and they'll say, hey, the best direct response copywriting has always been conversation. This is not a soft option. And I have students from my course who come back to me with real results, showing, hey, I tested traditional hard selling copywriting against conversational copywriting, and the conversational approach won. And it's because finally you're actually connecting with people, you're engaging with people. And there's also another thing here, a slightly different topic here between the hard chart, because we've talked a bit about the confusing gobbledygook business talk approach. There's also the overly selling approach, the hard selling approach, the direct sales approach. And that is where a lot of people are finding more success with the conversational approach. And then it's interesting because so there's this whole area called neuromarketing, where people have a look at the neurological impact of your brain of certain ways of selling. And people actually use those MRI machines. It's like an X-ray machine, but a donut where they slide you in and they do the scan of your brain and stuff. And so obviously it's medical purposes primarily, but marketers, you can buy time on those machines. And one of the tests some neuromarketers did is they put a whole bunch of people into the MRI machine, and then they showed them something scary, like a snarling tiger or a hissing snake. And part of the amygdala, so this is a very primitive part of the brain, lights up. This is the fight or flight.
Right, it's going danger, danger.
Danger. Absolutely. So you can see actually what's happening in the brain, and which part of the brains are responding to various stimuli. So show them pictures like that, and the amygdala goes boom. And the amygdala actually basically closes down any kind of thoughtful decision-making processes we might want to make, because it's, hey, stop thinking and run. Don't consider the options, just run or fight, one or the other. So then what they did is they showed these same people pictures, say, of a really pushy used car salesman.
And they went, danger, danger.
You're exactly right. The amygdala lights up. If you're overly aggressive, it is perceived as a threat. And we know this. We know that whether it's in a car dealership or someone coming to our front door, we feel like stepping back. Yeah, we can actually feel a barrier coming up because we're in a state where we do not trust this person. We're in defensive mode now because we do not trust this person. And as anyone knows in business, where there's lack of trust, there's no sale.
Right.
we don't buy from people who we clearly don't trust. And so it's interesting, that whole field of neuromarketing, where they're finding out that there's actually a physiological response, there's the neurological response to hard selling that makes us step back, bring up the barriers, not trust the messenger. And I think that is where, if you are conversational and you are more transparent and you are honest and you use language that is not associated with the hard sell, you know, the push, push, rush, rush, free, you know, hurry, hurry, all that language.
Buy now, buy now.
Yeah. Offer expires at midnight tonight. Or less than now. Some of that stuff can still have its place when used correctly. But the mindset of pushing, of always be closing, really doesn't work very well online.
Right.
So that's where if you use, in fact, more conversational language, different things happen in the mind. You actually get these kind of happiness drugs, you know, the dopamine, you know, rush of like the feel-good drugs. So the old school hard selling stuff triggers the fight or flight. The conversational approach, more engaging, more based on listening, more transparency, more honesty, actually brings more pleasure. The dopamine begins to pour out into the brain. People feel more comfortable and they feel more trusting. And then that increased trust leads almost always to increased sales.
Right.
So this is going back to when people say, hey, Nick, this sounds all kind of warm and kind of granola-like, but it sounds like a soft skill. And I say, actually, no, it's not. It's an essential skill if you want to increase and so many, particularly in business to business, so many sales depend on truly engaging with that prospect and building trust with that prospect. Very hard to build trust in B2B without conversation. And when you have the conversation, very, very hard to make the sale if you don't get that person to trust you.
Right. You know, and one of the things that I think is just absolutely basic about this is that it's a conversation with one person. You've got this great little e-resource that you're going to offer to our readers, and it's called 5 Quick and Easy Ways to Make Your Writing More Conversational. But one of the very first point is visualize yourself in a conversation with one person. Yes. You know, and I think maybe that's the problem, is we start thinking, okay, well, we're going to write for everyone who could ever maybe kind of sort of want to buy from us. And, you know, and so part of this is the hard part is you have to figure out who your audience is, you know, and we've talked about this on other programs where everyone is not your audience. Doesn't matter what your product or service is, everyone is not your audience. And so you start getting it more and more fine-tuned, and then have that conversation. You know, maybe you're selling something for, you know, mothers who are up at 2 a.m. Okay, writing it for everyone isn't going to work. You know, you need to think, okay, I'm having a conversation with a mother of a newborn who is up at 2 a.m. And it's, you know, you're going to be writing it very differently.
Or you are writing to Cindy.
Right. Yes, even more specific, not a mother.
Whose daughter Janice has trouble sleeping.
Right.
And as soon as you actually give that person a name, and as soon as you picture that. So I said earlier about proofing finding out whether your website or your email copy works by reading it out to a friend and feeling how you know, do I feel comfortable or uncomfortable? Does this sound like the real me or not? The other thing is, like you say, absolutely, is to visualize right before you start writing, who am I writing to?
Right.
And when I had this conversation with companies, and the larger the company, the more of a problem this tends to be, is they'll say,
because it's by delegation, you know, it just starts starting.
I think, well, you can relate to this. We are talking to C-suite executives.
Right.
And that's like, okay, but I can't see that.
Right.
How can I talk to these people if I cannot see them? Don't give me a job title. Don't even give me a job description. Give me a person.
Right.
Frank, who is the COO of this company, is who he is. Here, he's big concerns in a company like that. And yeah, now I can write to Frank. So absolutely. And so, of course, I'm going to do that whole research. I'm going to do my 8 hours of research and listening. So I really get a sense of who Frank is and the language he uses. and the concerns that he has. And if I can actually speak to him, if I can actually get to know him better than some of his colleagues, that would be a wonderful thing. If I could become a friend or ally of Frank when I talk to him. So yeah, absolutely. Write as if you're writing to one person. And this isn't just me. I mean, this is, there are novelists over the years who said the same thing. Hey, Warren Buffett is he's famous for his annual shareholder letter. All right. And his letter is famous for being very clear, but without gobbledygook. It's any intelligent investor can understand Warren Buffett's annual letter. Why? Because he writes it to his sister. He writes it to Dorothy. He's always written that letter to his sister. He sits down and he thinks, hey, if I want to do it, because Dorothy's not in, she's a smart lady, but she's not in the same business as Warren. So he says, hey, if I wanted to explain how we did this last year to Dorothy, how would I do that? And then he writes a letter to Dorothy, which then becomes a letter to the shareholders, which is genius. It's perfect. So there's novelists as well who sit down and say, okay, who is my reader? I'm going to write this to one person. This is the one person I'm writing this to. Because it's when you try to be a crowd pleaser, you please nobody. I mean, seriously.
Well, and one of the easy things to do is to find then a picture of, of Dorothy. I mean, that'd be, and so as you're writing, that picture is there in front of you on your computer, or taped to it or wherever. And I've done that with clients before where I have said, okay, here is who you're writing for, or who we're writing for. This is our target market. And, and they're like, but that's one person. Yeah, it should be one person. And granted there are, and then you always get the, but, because it's, but no. Right? That one person, and that's the trick that we have with, with marketing is I'll tell people, get it down to your, niche it down as far as you possibly can. And of course, the big thing that many people will say is, but the people over here could also buy, and so they're thinking that by niching it down, they're losing money. Well, those little offshoot people might buy from you anyway. But if you don't have it down to that niche, that's where the money is. And maybe that comes down to 100 people, whatever your product is, maybe it goes to 100 people. Writing for 10,000 is wasting your time.
Hey, but also that's like an old school thinking because I used to, many moons ago, write brochures for Chrysler, for the car model. For my sins, and so you write a brochure, and it is to anyone who might buy a Magic Wagon back then, and it would be that one brochure for the next year until the new models come out. Online, yes, you find exactly as you described, one person, Frank. We're going to write to Frank, and are we leaving this other segment behind? Actually, yes, we are, and maybe we should. Or, hey, this is the web. We're going to have one page for Frank,
right?
We're going to have another page. We can have 10 different landing pages. I mean, I've done tests where we've had 100 different versions of the same page, specifically addressed to specific niches within their broader audience. So that you're always speaking to Frank, to Dorothy, to Janice, to whoever. But you also, you were talking about target market, which brings me to something else that I talk about a lot, which is try to get that adversarial mindset out of your head. Target market, it's like a military thing. Here's the target. So there's lots of military analogies and sports analogies in marketing. It's all about winning. We've got to win. If we don't win, we lose.
You got to score that touchdown.
Yeah. So there's lots of adversarial language in traditional marketing. And that is the antithesis to conversational, because conversational writing and communication is all about engagement and trust and transparency. You can't get there by being adversarial. And it really is, again, the difference between the old offline way and the potential online. Is offline, we actually did have to kind of push a bit more aggressively with TV or radio or billboard. So yeah, we'd write at an audience and we would be a bit more, I would be a bit more pushy. I was certainly more pushy in my writing style back in the offline world. Online, no, it doesn't work as well
Mhm.
because our audience has a voice. They have way more choices.
Mhm.
Oh my goodness. Hey, imagine you're in a small town 30 years ago and you want to buy shoes. You go to Main Street, you got one store, two stores.
Mhm.
That's your choices.
Right.
Those stores can make all kinds of mistakes, but because there's only two choices in
Mhm.
town,
Right.
what do you find?
You were kind of stuck.
Shoes.
Mhm.
Now, online,
Mhm.
I can go to thousands of retailers
Mhm.
online to buy shoes. So you really cannot afford to upset or push away or be aggressive or
Mhm.
adversarial with the audience because they always have a choice. They always have
Mhm.
that background.
Right.
And people, and they're always distracted.
Mhm.
They're distracted by their smartphones, by social media, by messages. Everyone is so distracted.
Mhm.
And so if you're just another aggressive marketer, it's very easy to just move away, to step
Right.
aside, that the fight or flight.
Mhm.
The only reason I'll stick with you, I think, is if you have engaged with me on that more personal
Mhm.
level, on that more emotional level. I feel that I trust you. I feel some
Mhm.
loyalty. I feel some engagement. I feel you're
Mhm.
on my side. I feel you get me because
Mhm.
you keep saying stuff to me where I think, oh my goodness, they read my mind.
Mhm. Right.
So even in a world of distractions, I'm going to stick with that
Mhm.
company because they have engaged with me.
Mhm.
And the old school adversarial language or approach is not going to achieve that anymore.
Mm-mm.
It just pushes people away.
Mhm. Right.
So that's another one of my tips is stop trying to be so persuasive.
Mhm.
Stop trying to be so pushy. Stop using pushy language. Get out of that pushy mindset
Mhm.
and be in that mindset where you're across the kitchen table. You're mirroring their concerns.
Mhm.
You're trying to be their friend. And you are. And that's another thing. And something that I've always done is when I work with clients is I said, look, I have to tell you something. I'm going to be an advocate, not so much for you. I'm going to, as a copywriter, I'm going to be an advocate for your audience.
Mhm.
I'm on their side.
Right.
And don't get me wrong, this is actually to your benefit.
Mhm.
If I'm just on your side, now I'm being pushy and adversarial.
Mhm.
And your audience is not my enemy, but a place I need to win against them to get their credit cards
Mhm.
out.
Right.
I said, that'll take us, that far. But if in
Mhm.
fact I'm on their side, that changes everything. It
Mhm.
changes the language I use. It changes my mindset.
Mhm.
And that, I think, then takes us a whole lot further.
Right. And you said the word several times, personal. And of course, one of the buzzwords right now is we have to be authentic. And social media, of course, really allows that, or and so as small business owners, as entrepreneurs, we're using social media so that people get to know us. And so we tell people, it's okay on social media to talk about your cat, your dog, your kids, you had a bad day, all these various things without going into too much detail. I mean, right there, the TMI people. But that is part of it is, when we're having a conversation with somebody and wanting to trust them enough to spend money with them, we know a little bit more about them. We know that they also like dogs, or they're a fan of a certain sports team, or whatever it is.
Right.
And so it is about kind of getting to know. And you can put that, especially if you're a single, a solopreneur, you can have that in your website. I mean, I remember people, and this was an English professor that said, you cannot use the word I. Well, sure I can. I want people to get to know me. And so it's okay to say, I do this. And now, we certainly, when you're looking at your copy, you don't want it to go, I. I mean, that just looks, I tell people, no, don't do that. But it's okay to let people know your personality, because that is part of having that conversation.
Right. So you're absolutely right. And I believe that's super powerful. But let me draw a really important distinction here.
Mm-hmm.
There's a difference between being authentic and writing as if you're authentic.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Like there's a difference between, so I don't know whether you've received them. I get these emails where it's like, hey, Nick, buddy.
I know. And you're like, no.
Like I was walking down the street this morning and I suddenly thought, hey, you haven't you hadn't jumped at such an offer.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, no, you weren't thinking of me when you were
No.
That's a lie. You
Mm-hmm.
put this email in your automated system
Mm-hmm.
6 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a difference between being genuinely a friend to your audience and being this kind of false buddy approach.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the false buddy approach may take you so far, but at some point people are going to get it, that you're actually being totally unauthentic here. So yes, by all means, present yourself as your real self, but not as a device. Do it because it is you.
Right.
Not because you've read somewhere that it's clever to be you, but be you.
Right.
It's like it's stripping away all the kind of artifice and actually just being real about this stuff.
Yeah, because people will pick up very quickly that it really is not authentic. You know, and it's and because we do that in real life, you know, we know, okay, well, they really didn't mean that. They were just saying it because, you know, and I mean, that comes from when we were little kids, you know, no, they didn't mean that. You know, mom really didn't mean that I could have that, you know, whatever it was, you know, and so, you know, back to, you know, what we were saying at the very start, kids, I mean, you know, kids pick up on these things very quickly. You know, even if it's just that you say something and you get the eye roll, you know, okay, the second you get the eye roll, you know, no, shouldn't have gone there.
Right. Kids know, like say, when we were kids, we knew how to do this stuff.
Right.
We just need to rediscover it.
Yeah, and there's a you know, another one of those things going around on Facebook that I see fairly frequently, kind of along the same lines of, you know, I don't trust somebody that my dog doesn't trust. You know, and that kind of is true. I mean, you know, that dogs and kids pick up on these things. You know, and so yeah, if my dog's not going to like you, I don't know.
The dog test for
yes. Well, oh my gosh, Nick, I didn't even get to several of my notes here because, you know, I wrote down that we need to talk about the fact that, you know, it's just as important to be conversational when you're doing internal communications for your employees, or how to write good email campaigns, and then the importance of visuals. You know, so all that means is we just have to have you on again, because it's very important. You know, as I said at the very start of the program, if we aren't using our words correctly and in a way that really involves the reader, or then it really is a waste of time. We can have the greatest product or service in the world, but if we didn't convince them it's the greatest product or service in the world in a good way, it's not going to matter. And so we just have to have you on again, because there's so much.
That's a huge topic, the one about internal communication within an organization, because that could be just as full of nonsense and gobbledygook, and you can have divisions not understanding what each other are doing, teams within divisions having no clue because communicate. So yeah, I
did internal communications for one of the largest companies in the world, and we always struggled with that.
There's a wonderful book by Judith Glaser called Conversational Intelligence, which is all about having better conversations within a corporation, within a company. Yeah. Anyway, for another conversation.
For another time. So until then, Nick, tell people how they find you and work with you online.
Okay, so come to conversationalcopywriting.com. And you can wander around. I have a blog there. There's all kinds of pages there. You can discover all kinds of stuff. I have put together a page for you. It's conversationalcopywriting.com/power. And if you go there, I will invite you to sign up, and I will send you that free ebook that you mentioned.
I have right here.
All right, plus a series of videos. Which is basically the beginning of, you know, getting into learning about conversational copywriting, how it works and why it's important to your business or organization. And then I'll keep you updated. And yes, for sure, I will try to sell you my course on conversational copywriting.
But it's not a hard sell.
No, I think what I hope you'll find is that I walk the talk, that I take a conversational approach, that I also listen very carefully to the people that I'm talking with. And I don't push too hard. I try to share a lot of valuable information. I try to give a lot more than I ask for in return. So yes, conversationalcopywriting.com/power. Or if you just want to email me, again, I like to be accessible. So you can email me at nick@conversationalcopywriting.com.
Perfect. I love it. Well, do you have any final words that you want to leave everyone with?
good communication is not about being clever. It's about being simple. One idea per sentence, short sentence, short word, short paragraph. Always ask for what is the purpose of this page, and then just get there in the simplest way possible. And that alone could transform how you communicate online.
I love it. And I can't add anything more to that. So I am Deb Creer. I've been having an absolutely fascinating time talking with Nick Usborne. And until next time, everyone have a great day.
Thanks for listening to the Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer. Join us next time for more real-life stories and techniques to power up your business.
You've been listening to C-Suite Radio. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.